Here's another classic from Larousse Gastronomique. I made chicken bourguignon, which as the name implies is a twist on the classic beef bourguignon. I'm going to get started in a Dutch oven over medium heat. I've got 3 strips of thick cut bacon here, probably about 100 grams. I'm going to dice that up. Toss it in my Dutch oven, and cook that until the fat renders out and the bacon goes brown and crispy. The original recipe calls for lean bacon, but nah, I'm good. Plus they said to brown the lean bacon in butter, which, why bother adding fat to something that's lean when you can just use something that's fatty as is? Next up, I've got to add in some mushrooms, going with a combo of these baby shiitakes, as well as these white shimeji mushrooms that I cut off of their stems. I'll dump those in, toss them in the bacon fat, and now I need 20 small onions. I took that as meaning pearl onions, and while I was shopping I totally forgot that frozen peeled pearl onions exist, so I bought this bag of pearl onions and proceeded to peel them myself, one by one, which if you've never done it is, let's just say it's not fun. It's really fiddly work. The skins don't come off in one piece. Go for the frozen ones if you're planning on making this. I'm going to toss those in. And now the bacon fat wasn't actually enough to cook everything in, so I take back what I said earlier, and I threw in about 30 grams of butter. Just add a little bit of lubrication to this. Saute that all together until the onions have softened, and then we'll remove the bacon, the onions, the mushrooms, all that stuff off to the side for later. And in that remaining butter and bacon fat, we're going to brown some chicken thighs. The recipe didn't actually specify what cut of chicken to use, it just said add the chicken. So I'm using thighs because it'll do well over a long cooking time, not get too dry. And these bone-in thigh sections require no prep, so that's easier for me after all that onion work. I'm going to brown the skin, flip it over, and brown the other side. And then remove all the chicken off to the side. Now I'm going to deglaze with some white wine. I know typically modern bourguignon uses red wine, and even this recipe calls for red wine, but I wanted to mix things up a little bit. Apparently back in the day, before bourguignon became set in stone, white wine was much more commonly used in cooking, so we'll see how it turns out. Next up, I've got to make some gravy. Throwing about 100 grams of butter into a saucepan, let that melt. And I'm going in with an equal amount of flour. I'll add it little by little to make a roux. Cook that for a few minutes so it's not raw. Then I'm going in with some chicken stock. Next up, as a shortcut, I'm adding a stock cube. This will taste fine in the end, no need to spend time making your own stock. I'm sure that would taste a little bit better, but again, I peeled 20 mini onions. Now, normally here I would add Worcestershire sauce, but I was out of that, so I'm adding a little bit of dark soy sauce, which will give us a little bit of that salty umami that we would be lacking otherwise. Cook that for a few minutes so everything incorporates. And I'll add that into the Dutch oven along with that wine. Brought that up to a boil. And now I want to add in a Bouquet garni. I just got a multi-pack of roasting herbs. It's got some sage, it's got some rosemary, some thyme. I'll tie those together with a string. And toss those in, along with the chicken thighs and the onion, mushroom, bacon combo. I'm going to turn the heat to low and let that cook for 20 to 30 minutes. The recipe says 45 minutes to an hour, but I'm just using thighs here, so the chicken should be nice and tender in a shorter amount of time. But if you're using thicker cuts or a whole chicken, then yeah, follow that recommendation. And this turned out just as good as you'd expect. The bacon, the mushrooms, and those herbs really come through, and it's just a really good chicken in a thick French white wine kind of sauce. It really feels like one of those dishes that you serve at a fancy dinner party. So if you're having friends over, this wouldn't be too hard to put together in your pot and leave it on the stove until it's time to eat.